expect the Republican primary to be contested for the at-large races?
Oh, I think we had 14 last time. We always have a lot. There's always somewhere between 5 and 10 candidates on each side for the 3 spots. So yeah, it's always vigorous. I think there'll be a lot of candidates, particularly depending on who declares and who doesn't declare, depending on who's running for mayor and who's not going to run, and still a lot of flux on who's going to be running at large this year.
Have you had any discussions with any of the current council members, council at large members, to see what their plans are?
No, not in an official way, so I better let them make their own decisions. I mean, I know what I read in the newspapers and stuff like that, so a lot of them are thinking about things, but I don't know that for sure. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
One question on the smoking, which I agree with in a way, but being a disabled veteran, a commander of the Council of Veterans, and also a VAVS hospital, I would like to know, is there a way you could write some kind of allowance in there where veterans organizations only can have smoking as long as there's not more than 100 people in the building?
Short answer, no. Because as soon as you start down that slippery slope, there is no way you can stop, because everybody will want an exception, and it's not any more logical to allow some. I'm sure not every veteran smokes. I mean, I've had letters from some that appreciate the ordinance because they used to have to be in smoke. So therefore, it's not fair necessarily to them, and you also have employees in those places that maybe have to have the job,
Okay.
but they don't want to be around the smoke. So it's kind of like being pregnant. You either have the ordinance or you don't. There really isn't a halfway. Because we tried sort of a halfway back when, but the Surgeon General came out with a report a few years ago, and the only logical approach is in all public places totally smoke-free.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
You were on the council before
12 years.
as at
At large,
What would you do better this time? In what? Can you give us an example?
I'll give you an example. One vote I wish I could take back was on the Public Safety Training Academy. When that was set up, and it was a hard vote for me even then, and I was right on the fence, but it was set up as a public-private partnership, and we had a very strong private board with some very strong heavy hitters, Pete Ashelman, Joe Ruffalo, that had already committed to raising a very large, substantial amount of money each year, and would have made that facility self-supporting. So that's what I voted for. But unfortunately, one of the things I learned is the condition at the time you vote may not be the condition with the next administration or the next year.
Is that training policemen?
Policemen and fire and everybody. So the idea is great, but the problem was when the administration changed, that board changed and the model changed, so now it suddenly became pretty much the city's going to have to pay for everything, and it's going to turn, I'm afraid, into a white elephant. And so I never would have voted for it in its present state. And just like when you get, when you read an investment prospectus for buying a stock or something, you should always probably vote on the worst case scenario, not maybe what you have now or the best case scenario. So I think I learned to be a little more cautious. Don Schmidt, for example, wanted to make sure that we had the actual financial reports on some of the investors on the Harrison Square. And we were assured that everything was fine and there would be no problem no matter what happened. Don was probably right. We should have gotten more documentation of that fact and probably done a performance bond. In other words, what I learned was prepare always for the worst. Don't assume that it's going to go the way you think. Now, a lot of times, some of the things we did go just fine, but I think you need, in this day and age, to take a little more safeguards with the public's money. So that's what I learned.
One thing. I agree with you 100% now on the clarification on the smoking. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're a great guy. You're a good cancer doctor and everything else. But you are right, I guess, once I'm thinking why they can't allow this.
Okay.
But there's other things the veterans need to do. That's a fought for our freedom, but still the smoking is harmful to other people, and you can't draw a line on that.
Okay.
Just stop it, okay?
Well, thank you. That's a very logical approach. I appreciate that. Let's see. Anybody else come in? I think Jim Banks came in.
Good to see you.
State Senator-elect, right? Fantastic.
Sworn in on Tuesday.
Very, oh, I'm sorry. Any other candidates or elected officials I missed? Okay. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that the next council will face is what to do with 40 million plus from city light lease funds and the sale of the utility. If, presuming that goes through, if it does, do you have any general principles in mind about how that money should be used?
Not yet. No, as I want to hear all the input and listen to the discussion at the council table, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't even have a problem with giving some of it back. Because, for example, in the last city budget, we already have about a $25 million cash balance, and we already are going to be getting the city light lease money. Now we're going to get another $39 million back. We might not have to do, for example, a property tax increase next year, or do some ways like that to give that money back, because it came from the people. I don't think we necessarily have to run out and go spend it. So there may be some things we might want to do, and there's lots of things you can do with the money. Lots of infrastructure things. I think Councilman Smith mentioned at the last meeting, because those are always good economic development things. They basically bring almost as many dollars back into the community as you spend, both from the jobs you create and from the better workings of the city. So there's always, it's never a problem having too much money, but I think we could look at least, you know, definitely not doing a property tax increase next year and things like that. Anybody else? All right, thanks everybody for coming. Thank you.